Well, hey, y'all. It's Lisi Keeker here. I'm joined by Matt. We're joined with, not by, with Matt Hanton. Welcome to the business of boutique fitness. Today, we're talking about, I think, something that's been on a lot of people's minds. Like right now, we're in some uncertain economic turns. And the question really becomes like, how do you economy proof your studio? Now, for me, this was like a very interesting one. I opened my first brick and mortar studio in 2008, like right in the heart. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'll never forget when we started the opening of this. Of course, it's 2007. It was still a relatively stable market. And at one point, my husband called me in 2008 when we realized the economy was really going to be in a pretty big downturn. And he's like, are we going to lose like everything? And I think that's a real question like you come into with this is, we didn't, by the way. Like let's make sure, spoiler alert, we did not lose everything. We are just fine. It turned out to be a brilliant idea. But it also like really opened up my mind to the fact that, hey, we're going to go through seasons, not just this season, but any number of other seasons. We've got listeners literally in well over 60 countries all over the world. Your individual countries, and in some cases, your individual local economies are going to be impacted by, greater economic factors like the tariffs and trade deals we've been looking at, stock market fluctuations to, natural disasters, to so many other things that we can't even begin to imagine. So we're talking about things that are not like, hey, this is because of what's happened in the last 60 days that you need to do this. I think this is like something we really need to discuss and say everyone needs to have this in place.
Absolutely. And it's all connected, right? Even if something's not happening super locally to you, it can be influenced by another country. And there's so many factors that are at play here.
Do Australians hate America right now?
Look, I live here, so I don't have boots on the ground over there, so I don't feel comfortable talking for my 26 million fellow Australians. But look, I think it's a very real conversation, and I'm excited that we're going to be having it today.
The Canadians hate us.
Yeah,
I can say that.
You can speak for them.
I can say this because I flew to Canada for the first time, and it was first time since all of this started. And it was funny. They don't actually hate us. Okay. But I'm going through customs on the way back. Mm-hmm. And I was shocked that like, it was the first thing that was brought up when they were taking apart my bag because I'd accidentally left a bottle of water in it, that they're like, Canada's a good country. And I was like, it's a lovely country. They're like, why is America doing this? I'm like, I am not the greater American representative. Let me be clear. I'm going to my very small White House. Yeah. You need to look to the big White House for where we're at right now. But I think as you go on this, the fact of the matter is, if you're in Europe, you've been impacted by the Russian-Ukrainian invasion. Talk to any hot yoga studio owner whose, utilities went from, 500 pounds a month to 4,000 pounds a month. And so, if you're sitting in parts of Asia right now, we've got some significant things that have been going on. We work with some studios in the greater India market. Like, there's things that are happening around the world that are likely to impact you. And so this is something that we want to get very comfortable with on this. So let's just first dive deep. We are in a period of economic uncertainty.
We are.
Okay. Knowing that, well, let's just dive in a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, how did we get here? Where are we, firstly? How did we get here? What is the problem? What's going to happen? I'm just going to start by asking you some impossible to answer questions.
I feel like I should be on CNBC right now. Yeah. I feel like I'm also the wrong person to answer them, but we're gonna roll with it. As a studio owner, okay, so let's just know. We had a presidential election. If you did not know that, I'm concerned, like really concerned right now for you. Presidential election, Donald Trump came in, and obviously in January, major campaign premise was that there was going to be some protective measures that were going to be put into place from a trade deal. Now that meant that we have been on a wild whirlwind of tariffs. We're going to talk about this in another episode that's in this series, but needless to say, I think it's very clear that Donald Trump has a very different style than most presidents.
Yes.
His involves a club.
Yes.
Yes, this is one where it's like, what is the Flintstones? Is that right?
Flintstones.
He's totally
Good
Fred.
one. Good
Like,
metaphor.
I mean,
Yes.
like, he's totally Fred. He sees that club and he knows that, like, he can use this and wield this with really any geopolitical issue that goes on. So we've wound up with a lot of tariffs that have seemingly popped out of nowhere. They certainly were things that he promised in his presidential election. So they're not as out of nowhere as one can see. But when a tariff of, significant rates are tweeted out into the middle of nowhere, it's causing some significant issues. So S&P here in the United States, current 3-month return is down negative 7.8%. That's significantly below the long-term average of being up 1.73%. So we've seen the volatility in the stock market. That means that in some cases, for aspiring studio owners, they're looking around and saying, what the hell? My $300,000 I set aside in my stock market account for this is now worth $250,000. We're also looking at having consumers who are saying, whoa, the same thing has happened to them. This is a volatile market right now, and I think we can expect that while it seems to be moving on the mend as we're filming this, I think we can expect that we're going to continue to see that club being pulled out every time there's a conflict with another country. And that means some of this volatility is going to be here for a little while because that's the style of the president that we have in place. Tariffs are impacting beyond this some inflationary concerns. Tariffs, especially the 145% tariff against China, I think has really, caused some reverberations around the world. Did you know how many things we got from China?
Yeah, it's a big one. Yeah.
I mean, I thought I understood, but I don't think I really did.
Yeah, well, I mean, China is such a significant trading partner for almost every country, right? But particularly in Australia, that, Austro-Asian influence, we're very close. So I was highly aware of how China trade deals go. But yeah.
Yeah, it's coming in. So, I think it's one of those things that we're seeing, whoa, inflation, interest rates. Interest rates are technically on the decline overall, but they're still significantly higher than they were even, let's just say just a handful of years ago. Obviously, the last few years have also been filled with some pretty significant military actions.
Yeah,
So
geopolitically, it's been
significant.
Yeah, it's been huge.
I mean, you see where right now we've got conflicts, Russia and the Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
We've got conflicts sitting
in the Middle
Israel
East.
and Palestine. Conflicts right now between India and Pakistan. There's something that is well beyond a skirmish that's erupting, and I mean that makes that. To be quite frank, I think that should make us a little nervous to see the fact that we're in a little bit of a tenuous place. So now this has gotten to us to a point where we're looking around and we're saying, okay, a little bit uncertain. Maybe in your market, there's none of these things are impacting you. Maybe you were talking before about Asheville. Maybe you're a market where, hey, your concern is less this, or you're from like a place like I'm from, New Orleans, where we're moving towards hurricane season, and we're a lot more worried about losing a significant chunk to that. We use Asheville as an example because, like, Asheville, I don't think really was concerned about much of this at all. And
No, it was taking off.
yeah,
It was kicking so many goals.
Yeah, and hurricane hits the Gulf Coast, and 3 days later, Asheville's a mess. And so, this really is a recognition that you can't plan for any of these things. You're not going to be able to plan for whether or not Donald Trump's going to tweet something out. You're not going to be able to plan if a neighboring country of yours decides they're suddenly angry at yours and they too want to carry a club. You're not going to plan for sure about some type of natural disaster or things of the like. So let's get into how we actually can plan inside our studios, because that's the one thing we can control in this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you were sharing a really interesting stat with me earlier, Lise, from the NAB in Australia around when there is economic uncertainty or we enter even recessions or things like that, and how that influences people's spending patterns.
Yeah, I think this is interesting. So, guys, the NAB is really a group of prominent Australian economists. They do a great job of looking at how consumer spend is adjusted in times of economic uncertainty. And so they do this quarterly, typically, and they did a major one at the start of 2024 that I think was a little bit more far-reaching than we'd gotten in the past. What was fascinating is that we realized that people got very aware of what really mattered to them. So economic uncertainty, they were going to stop dining out. They were going to stop going to the movies. They were going to stop traveling. They were going to stop spending money on clothing. They were going to stop doing a lot of things. And actually, interestingly enough, studios and health memberships were almost at the bottom of the list. There was only a handful of things that were below this. It included spending on your pets, which my dog is, Fiona is basically my daughter on this. Just going to be totally clear on this. Spending on your children, and spending on health insurance, home insurance, housekeeping, things of the like. That's it. Like, people are sticking with us. I think, the benefit of COVID, and there was a benefit to COVID in this, is that everyone's aware of what health actually looks like these days and the sheer importance of how critical health is. So that's on our side. Even looking at the statistics around Gen Z. It's pretty fascinating. You see where they're spending money. And number two thing that they spend money on, I mean, out of like several dozen options, is health and well-being. Like, they're looking, and I think I was chatting with somebody, it was a UVA student not long ago, and she gave the example that she's like, I've watched my grandparents, I've watched my parents maybe not live the healthiest of lives. She's like, that's something I'm unwilling to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like there's some generational things there.
Yeah. And, any insights into the workings of the Gen Z mind, we'll take them, right? Because they are a riddle, but it's very reassuring to know that they're following the trends of prioritizing wellness and fitness.
Yeah. To be honest with you, I find Gen Z fascinating in the sense that they're much more old-fashioned than we would give them credit.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, like, they're very concerned about their health and well-being. They are very concerned about personal and romantic relationships and the strength and solidity of these. They are just very interested in Main Street. I think millennials, unfortunately, decided we killed Main Street. I mean, unintentionally, it was like, welcome to Amazon. Maybe we're going to blame it on what's Gen X is before us.
What's their...
Gen X is what comes before millennials.
Boomers, Gen X is before
then
millennials.
We're gonna say boomers and Gen X. We're gonna blame it on them.
As a millennial, I'm happy to always blame boomers and Gen X.
Totally, I'm there with you on this one. So they have destroyed Main Street. Like, Gen Z, though, is the opposite. Like, they're the ones who are like, how do we rebuild this 110%? And I think there's some real power in knowing that, hey, these are people who are seeking out, they're interested in being a part of a brand like ours. That's to your benefit in a time of economic uncertainty, that we've got a service people don't just want, they know they need it.
Absolutely. And it's an opportunity for us, right? Because if people are not going out for dinner and they're not going to the movies and they're not going on these road trips, where are they going? They're still choosing to invest in their fitness. They're still choosing to stay active. So I guess the question then really becomes, how do we make sure that these people are choosing us?
Yeah. So first, I mean, I do think in this, there is the idea that the strongest survive, this very Darwin theory of the evolution. In a time of economic uncertainty, I would say the best and the ones with the best message survive. That's going to be our Darwinian factors that we're going to pull into this on this one. So, operational excellence. Like, here's how I rank them. And guys, I'm not going to lie. I put all of this in a list before we were beginning because I was like, we really do have a method to the madness in this. So the first is going to be, you're in class, you're in small group, you're in private session. You have to have the best of the business. Now, by the way, I think it's really important. We oftentimes define the best as the most experience. That's not, in my mind, the case. The best are the best at giving an experience, not having the most experience. And I think this is something you probably have seen a lot of.
Absolutely. And I think it's really important to very intentionally define best, right? For you and what you do, and that it aligns
Yeah.
with your mission and your visions and your
Absolutely.
values, because best is a subjective term, right?
Yeah.
So that's the first place to start, right? Defining your best, and then that will lead you into how you define your excellence.
Would you define the best as being by looking at literal data around like what percentage of privates are booked, how many people are showing up to these classes? How do you interweave that in?
Yeah, I think in terms of quantifying how you're
Yeah.
delivering things, the data is definitely going to help with that, right? However, I think that there are circumstances that data doesn't tell the full story, right? And you do need to rely on some anecdotal feedback and, measures there to determine how you are doing. Because for me, it's impact, right? That's how you measure it. And whether you're measuring it by, seeing the progress in someone who was so nervous the first time they came in and now they're like the life of the party in class, or whether it's your utilization percentages, you want to be measuring the impact. And I think that's how you really determine whether or not you're hitting your excellence.
I'm always also looking at what class times people have. I mean, the
Yeah.
fact is like if 9 a.m. is your busiest time, you can have an average instructor and it's still going to be busy. I mean, I think it's one of these things that's factoring. This is where, really getting serious in my mind about one, looking at the data, and two, an investment for a period of time in quality control and really saying, hey, I'm sending a lead instructor out. They're going to be in every single class. They're going to be in private sessions. They're going to be taking privates with different instructors. I'm actually going to see like, is this experience what I expect? And now's the time I'm going to coach to that. This is a season where you want to start coaching now to ensure you are there. Second thing is the experience that's in studio outside of class. We completely ignore this oftentimes. I'll never forget, we have a gentleman that I wound up spending some time with in Austin, Texas, and he owns a significant chunk of $1 billion restaurant brand. And it was funny, totally random thing. I tried going into one of his restaurants, and I'd walk there in heels. And y'all, when you walk somewhere significant in heels, you expect to go in. And I got there and they're like, this is our soft opening. And I was like, you don't understand. I'm not walking like half mile back in these heels. And very charmingly, sweet fella in a Hawaiian shirt that was probably, pushing my grandfather's age, stops and he's like, wow, what did you think? And I was like, they won't let me in. And he's like, oh, you're coming in with me. I wound up eating the next 3 nights with them. And it was a fascinating thing because, he really had built, a brand that's enormous, hundreds upon hundreds, if not probably close to thousands of restaurants. One of his partners, Paul Fleming, so P.F. Chang's, Fleming Steakhouse, things of the like. And one of the fascinating things that he said to me is he said, our choice of investment after the chef, which let's say the chef is your experience in class, that's going to be your instructor, our number one highest paid position beyond that is front of house. Because the person who greets you, that experience starts everything. So the investment they had put into a maitre d', into someone who was going to be there to take, and say, I'm going to guide you to your table, they knew that that was as important as the food they were going to eat. Because if that was bad, you were just done.
Yep. Having touch points is so important, right? And mapping out the experience that your client is going to have in your studio by way of touch points. And what's going to be the first touch point? Totally. The front desk.
All the way.
Right.
All the way.
And it's the human element. There is definitely a significant chunk of this which gets attributed to, the aesthetics, the cleanliness, the flow of the studio, the physical kind of infrastructure.
Yeah.
But the biggest part is the connections with the people.
Totally. Now, front desk is a high turnover position. Can we say that almost everywhere?
Yeah.
Like it's one where it's interesting. Why do you think? Give me the rationale you think.
Yeah, I mean, this is one that I've battled constantly, right? And I think that so. the best approach to take with front desk turnover is to not try to eradicate it, because I just don't think that that's possible, right? It's to try to minimize it as much as you can. And I think so often what it is that this is a side hustle for our front deskers, right? They're studying, they're in college, maybe they've got something else on the side and they just want to supplement with a few hours, but it has to work for them as well as them working for us.
I think the one client of ours that I've seen do this extraordinarily well is someone who said, I'm really going to combine sales in the front desk. And because of that, I'm going to be able to elevate these positions. And I have to say, it was fascinating to sit down and see what she did with the front desk. And that's a consideration that you have, is if you realize that, hey, this is a critical piece. This person is selling retail. They are selling memberships. They are selling all of these things. Now is a time that, as we're talking lean business models, which we're going to talk about in the future, in a future part of this, this is going to be something to really consider. Do you want to look at making that change?
Yeah.
Do you want to look at making that shift and even reevaluating? So your best person sitting at the front desk, and they're going to elevate every single experience. And quite frankly, they're going to elevate the value economically of every single experience when somebody walks through your door.
Yeah, I mean, when I was hiring for front deskers, I would always describe the position to them as if they were hosting a party.
I love
Right?
that.
Because when you are hosting a party, what are you doing? You're constantly buzzing around. You're making sure everyone's got a drink, that the snacks are refilled, that the music's perfectly curated. You're talking to everyone, making sure everyone's having a good time, but it's still a party vibe.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
So
totally.
that for me is what the front desk position is.
All right. So if we have our experience in class, our experience in studio outside of class, now we get our experience outside of class. And I view this as two things. What are our personal outreach to people when they leave the studio? Obviously, they're going to spend a lot more time outside of the studio in their life than inside of the studio, even if we are their third space and so many other things. That's just the reality of, like, we're lucky if they're going to spend 15 hours a week with us.
Yeah.
This is the majority of their week will be spent elsewhere. So knowing that personal and digital, how are we really communicating with them? And how is that communication something that is not an afterthought? Because I think for a lot of studios, the moment someone walks out of their door, it's like total afterthought.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the digital presence is huge, right? How often do we spend looking at our phones? I mean, I get that screen time report every week, and it's my mission to get it lower each week.
I have something for you.
Oh no, what?
Do you want? Remy just showed it to me last night. So my 16-year-old, y'all, put an app on his phone that bullies him when he uses screen time. So apparently, because he has very strict screen time regulations from his father and I, he didn't get a phone till he was 16. So literally, I guess the other day, because he was doing FaceTime with studying because it's finals week, he literally got a note that just said, "You are a loser. You have spent like 6 hours on your phone." And he's like, "I am studying. I am studying." But he had pulled it up for me, and I was like, actually, that's remarkably effective. Like, no one wants to be told that, but it was so brutally honest.
See, I need that because at the moment, my reference point is once reading somewhere, I don't even know where this was, that one of the Kardashians spent like 14 or 15 hours a day on her phone. That was her screen time. And the fact that mine was only like 2 or 3.
You were feeling great.
I'm justifying it now because I'm not as bad as a Kardashian, but I think I just need to be bullied to get it even better.
I was like, I looked at this. Literally, that's what he's showing me in bed last night. I was like, this is actually remarkably effective. Yeah. His screen time's down to 1 hour and 15 minutes a day. And I was like, man, that was like really good for a 16-year-old on this. I do think, when we're dialing into this, how to build a thoughtful digital experience is critical. At social media, are you tagging people? Are you engaging them? Are your stories filled with actual clients, not just pretty images? I think beautiful images on social are a lovely thing. The images that oftentimes generate the most engagement are not the pretty images. They're the images of people you can actually recognize.
Absolutely.
They're the images of the fun. They're the images of things like that. Secondarily, being willing to have thoughtful automations that actually spark conversations and conversations that are beyond just, do you want to come into class? Yes, that's a conversation, but people are tired of hearing this. Hey, did you see this incredible article? Hey, I was listening to this. I thought you might like this. We send those out as blasts in a lot of studios, favorite podcasts, things like that. Those are things where all of a sudden people are looking at us as, oh, this is extending in. Like, hey, I'm listening to this podcast on a drive to, go on vacation. And suddenly I'm carrying my studio with me because they were who shared this. This is about thinking beyond this. I love a top 10 list, like playlists, songs that are like being used in the studio. Like, here it is this month, sharing a Spotify list. That's been really good for a lot of studios, interestingly enough.
Request a song for class. and the most votes gets put in. Yeah, I love all of that stuff.
I love it. I mean, to me, these are just like the fun ways that you carry yourself outside of this. Also think it's really important, and this is shocking to a lot of people, but you can in fact still pick up the phone and people will answer.
Wait, our phones make phone calls?
Isn't it amazing?
I completely forgot that.
I know. It's okay. I also do this, which apparently tells me how old I am. Yeah. Literally, my child was like, this to answer your phone. I'm like, oh my God.
That trend. Oof.
Oh, I'm having a moment, y'all. I'm having a moment. I'm still really quite young to be called old. So I think really honing in and harnessing, like, what does this look like for that experience? Getting creative on ways to really engage people. And I mean, this is the fun stuff, guys. And by the way, don't do this on your own. This is a day that if you want to think about like, hey, how really do we do this in our studio? Get 2 hours, have your team over for a lunch or a late afternoon coffee, and dive deep into this and say, what are all the ways we can carry each other in? Make this an amazing experience. It's going to help your team as well. Community experience. We're gonna touch on this, in just a hot second, but like even more. But community experience is key. How does your experience extend outside of the four walls of your studio?
I have to say, when I first started managing studios, I was so focused on just delivering the bottom line. Right, that was how I thought I would measure success. That's how I thought the company I was working for would measure my success. But I very quickly ran out of ways that I felt like I could pull that lever and directly influence that. As soon as I started focusing more on the community experience and building connections with people and having people feel really involved in something, the bottom line started influencing itself.
Yeah. I think, this is something you have an ability to do so many remarkable things on this. And again, you have the ability to have fun with this. I think you said something really important earlier when you said, hey, you hired a front desk and said, this is like you're hosting a party. That's exactly how I used to describe whoever owned this role. You've got to be the person who lives and dies by the idea of throwing a party and doing it over and over and over again, and that it fires you up. And when you have that person in this role that's as a community engagement manager, it's a part-time role for most studios. It's a great way to take a teacher and who's maybe salaried for 5 hours a week and salary an additional 5 to 8 hours a week. Incredible use of your marketing dollars. This is, by the way, analog marketing dollars that we're talking about here. When we say 50% of your marketing dollars should go towards analog, this is exactly what we're speaking of, that we want you to invest in, whether we're talking about the salary or the events themselves on this. So I think having that willingness to dedicate the time, to dedicate the team, in my mind, incredibly important.
And don't be afraid to do it. Just because, like I kind of made mention of, it's harder to quantify the return on that in a very black and white, short-sighted way. The return is there.
Yeah. Final experience, it's funny, I didn't have this on the list, but I think it's really important, is, your experience with your team. If you're going to go into any times when you've got some economic uncertainty, I really think that's when you need the greatest team members by your side. Like, this is when you cannot lose your superstars. You can get rid of, in fact, significant members of your team. And I would argue this is a time when you actually should do a really strong review. And if you're sitting with, 35 teachers, you should be looking at, and you're running 50 classes a week, you should be looking at and saying, what are my top 10 teachers?
Yep.
Who are the ones that are going to fill every single class? And you should be salarying them. You should be paying them top dollar. You should be making sure that you are getting the biggest bang for every hour that people are willing to come into your studio, because there's going to be low capacity times. Welcome to 1 to 4 p.m.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can figure out athletic training that opens up the door to 3:30, we can start there. But really, otherwise, you're in a really difficult position here.
Yeah, absolutely. And remember, if you're feeling uncertainty, so are your team.
Absolutely.
They're human, just like you. So anything that you can do to give them that job safety.
Can you imagine? This is how you also build loyalty,
Yes.
actual loyalty, which by the way still exists in team.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure we have some question marks on
Yeah.
this, but it really does. Most people are hunting this. Now, guys, we're going to wrap this as the end of part 1. We're going to be heading into part 2 in just a second. Looking, yes, at some very tangible additional steps we're going to take, but also diving deep into some of the messaging and ways you want to think about this. Because I will tell you, the message and how you shift this in times like this, in my mind, that's the difference between the studios that are going to fall flat and the studios are going to succeed. It is the most important thing that you can do outside of experience.
Absolutely.
I love it. So y'all, if you've been watching this episode or listening to this episode, be sure to hit subscribe, share this away. This is the type of thing that we want to see shared across the boutique fitness and greater fitness community. And I cannot wait to join you in part 2.